The opening scene shows Mila Jovovich, the actress who will portray Dr. Abigail Tyler in the film. She states that this film shows the events of the northern Alaskan town of Nome in October of 2000. The scene then shifts to Chapman University, which hosted a televised interview on September 3, 2002, between the actual psychologist, Dr. Abigail Abby Tyler, and Olatunde Ansunsami, the actual director of the film. Dr. Abby describes a series of events that occurred in Nome, Alaska in October 2000, including an alleged alien abduction. To recall the actual events, a past event of Abby undergoes a hypnosis session performed by a colleague, Dr. Abel Campos. Abby's husband, Will, was mysteriously murdered beside her in their bed, leaving Abby to raise their 2 children, Ashley and Ronnie. However, she cannot remember the face of the intruder, and the session results in leaving her in tears. Campos tries to convince Abby to take time off to clear her head, but she insists she must continue her husband's studies. After a brief scene with her 2 children, Ashley, who had gone blind soon after her father's death, and Ronnie, who blames his mother for the murder of his dad, Will, Abby begins her studies on the sleep deprivation situation in Nome, Alaska, the isolated town where she lives. She notes that her patients all have awoken at night to see a white owl watching them outside their windows for hours before something attempts to enter their homes. One of her patients, Tommy Fisher, remembers seeing the same owl in his childhood, but it has recently appeared every night this week. At the end of the session, Abby asks Tommy to return the next day to undergo a hypnosis session. Abby then picks up Ashley from her school, while the actual Abby describes her daughter's struggle with bullying at school after losing her sight. Furthermore, the actual Abby now also feels that Ronnie is justified in blaming her for Will's death. At night, Abby retrieves a book authored by Dr. Awolwa Adusami, which also contains his name and contact details. She then plays her husband's recording of his research, mentioning that sleep disorders have become a big thing in Nome, with the causes remaining unknown. He also states that over 300 individuals throughout Nome experience similar symptoms, waking up for no apparent reason around 3 a.m., feeling anxious and terrified. Abby starts the hypnosis session with Tommy the following day by asking questions. The session is shown side by side with footage of the real interview. Under the hypnosis, Tommy mentions having difficulty sleeping the previous night and seeing the owl at his window yet again, but it disappears as his door opens. When Abby asks about its appearance, Tommy suddenly opens his eyes and screams like crazy, causing the small table behind him to break. He then snaps out of the hypnosis and realizes the damage, looking confused. Tommy leaves terrified and unwilling to reveal what he has seen opening his door. If you want to know what was opening Tommy's door, subscribe to the channel. That night, Tommy's wife, Sarah, contacts 911, reporting that Tommy suddenly points a gun at her family. After some time, Sheriff August finally arrives at his house, where he discovers that Tommy is holding Sarah and their 2 children hostage, refusing to discuss the situation with anyone other than Abby. Consequently, Abby is called by the sheriff to the scene, which is full of police officers. She attempts to calm him down, but he believes his actions will stop his family from witnessing what he saw. He also claims to remember everything and asks about the meaning of Zemabu Eter, as to which no one knows its meaning. Tommy becomes convinced that Abby cannot help him. After that, he murders his entire family before taking his own life. In the aftermath, Abby is interrogated by the sheriff, doing her best to explain the situation. He asks about her hypnosis technique. An argument happens between the two as Abby answers his questions, mentioning the many unsolved murders in Nome. Their argument concludes with August ordering her to stop all studies on her patients for their safety. Abby records all her knowledge onto a tape, trying to summarize all the facts about the mysterious situations going around town. She thinks about what will become of the other patients undergoing hypnosis and whether they will experience the same outcome as Tommy. The next day, Campos arrives in Nome to check on her after hearing of the events. He also chooses to remain in the city to keep an eye on her. After that, Abby starts a hypnosis session with Scott Starvinsky, another patient. He seeks answers regarding Tommy's experience, as they both share the same sleep disorder. After learning about Tommy's encounter, Scott desires hypnosis, just in case he has forgotten something. Before starting the hypnosis, Campos is invited to watch the entire session. Scott's experience mirrors Tommy's, where he spotted the owl the previous night. He describes its unusually large eyes as different from a typical owl's. However, he suddenly changes his statement, saying there is no owl, but rather someone quietly enters his house without triggering the alarm. Upon awakening, Scott vomits and appears as frightened as Tommy. He then reveals that he saw something unimaginable that did not belong on Earth and finds it hard to describe. Although he associates it with an owl, he acknowledges its weird appearance. What distressed him most was the voice in his head, capable of communication with him. As he becomes increasingly emotional and distressed, Abby ends the session. Upon recognizing similarities in their narratives, Abby suspects these patients may have been victims of alien abduction, but Campos remains skeptical. Shortly afterward, Abby's assistant urgently asks her to listen to a tape recording made the previous night. The recording replays the words she dictated earlier, but then captures the sound of something entering her home, assaulting her, and using an unknown language. Abby and Campos are taken aback, as Abby has no memory of the incident. The real Abby is questioned in the interview regarding the voice's authenticity, to which she denies it was hers. At home, she attempts to recall the events, eventually remembering the sound of shattering glass and a bright white light shining through the windows. Later, something or someone climbed the stairs and approached her while she was sleeping. She discovers a strange mark on her shoulder and scratch marks on the wooden floor, showing us she was dragged across it. Following these discoveries, Abby attempts to decode the mysterious voice by repeatedly listening to it, but she remains unlucky in discovering its meaning. She recalls Odusami's book, which she opened earlier, and dialed his number. Odusami, an ancient linguist and a contact of her late husband, agrees to assist her, traveling to Nome to help identify the strange language on the tape. The real Abby describes feeling at ease with the doctor, appreciating his non-judgmental and supportive approach. After listening to the recording, Odusami identifies it as Sumerian, the oldest human language. He is shocked that the ancient language was spoken in Abby's room, suspecting it did not come from a human source. However, Campos dismisses his conjecture, remaining skeptical. Shortly after, Abby receives an anxious call from Scott's wife, making them hurry to their house. Upon arrival, they find Scott in bed, nervous and terrified. He confesses that the owl was non-existent and speaks of them, but struggles to recall further details. When Abby examines his arm, she discovers the same mysterious mark as hers. Abby suggests lightly hypnotizing him for research purposes, despite not knowing how it might end for Scott. Under hypnosis, he suddenly sits up and levitates above his bed with his mouth open. Simultaneously, a voice communicates through Scott, telling Abby in Sumerian to terminate her research before Scott collapses back onto the bed. Abby then decides to leave Nome after learning they are no longer safe there. However, August suddenly appears, accusing her of Scott's paralysis and wanting to arrest her. Campos intervenes, defending Abby, leading August to place her under constant guard inside her home, with a police officer standing outside equipped with a camera to monitor her house. If you think Sheriff August is just trying to do his job, please subscribe to the channel. In the interview, the real Abby outlines 4 categories of alien encounters: observing a UFO, finding evidence such as crop circles or radiation, making direct contact, and being abducted. She claims that everything in Nome, including Will's death and the disappearance of numerous individuals, is connected. She speculates that if such phenomena appear in a small town like Nome, they will likely happen worldwide. Moreover, she theorizes that the people who were abducted may be unaware of their experiences due to their messed up memories. At 3:33 a.m., the police officer observes a beam of light shining on Abby's house. Stepping outside, he witnesses a large black triangular object flying into view before the image changes. He is seeing people who are being removed from the house, forcing him to call for backup. Traumatized by the encounter, August arrives at the scene and requests to review the footage, which captured nothing. He rushes into the house to find Ronnie and Abby very upset, claiming that Ashley was taken through the ceiling. Not believing Abby, August accuses her of abduction and takes Ronnie from her custody. From then on, Abby realizes she must find her daughter alone. Consequently, she decides to make direct contact with the mysterious entities, visiting Campos' residence to undergo hypnosis in an attempt to reunite with her daughter. Although Campos and Odusami are nervous, they agree to assist. As Odusami records the session, Campos causes a trance, transporting Abby back to the period when she recorded her dictation. Like her previous patients, a hypnotized Abby recalls encountering the owl, recognizing it as the same owl but with a smiling behavior. Afterward, a blue light drops upon her house at precisely 3:33 a.m. She senses shadowy figures transporting her to an unfamiliar white environment with a large rotating machine behind her. The machine sticks to her shoulder, leaving a mark she remembers seeing. Meanwhile, Abby begins groaning and levitates, just like Scott. An alien presence communicates with her, making Abby beg for Ashley's return. However, the alien claims Ashley will never return and identifies itself as God. Following the encounter, Campos and Odusami rush to Abby's side, only to notice something off-screen. The image distorts once more as a voice exclaims, "Zimabu Eter," before revealing that all three individuals have vanished. Days later, Abby awakens in a hospital with a fractured neck, attended by Campos and awaited by the sheriff. August questions her once again about Will's death, to which she calmly responds that he was murdered. Surprisingly, August reveals that Will had committed suicide, debunking Abby's previously held beliefs. The real Abby claims that she, Campos, and Odusami were abducted during the hypnosis session, though they have no memory of the event. When questioned about her credibility regarding alien abduction, given her delusional belief in her husband's death, Abby continues to stay true to the story of Ashley's abduction by aliens. Abby acknowledges that she has no choice but to maintain hope that Ashley is alive and will reunite with her someday. As she becomes emotional, Olatunde Onsunsami finally concludes the interview. It is then that the camera zooms out and the audience is made aware of the fact that Abby is in a wheelchair, paralyzed. Later, Olatunde and Mila disclose Nome's strange events, with the city having over 2,000 visits by the FBI since the 1960s. They both emphasize that what you believe is yours to decide. The end credits reveal that Dr. Abel Campos continues to practice psychology in Alaska. He refused to comment and participate in the creation of this film. Dr. Awolwa Odusami has since obtained tenure at a prestigious Canadian university. He is assisted with the Sumerian translations, but he denies further involvement. He confirms Dr. Abby Tyler's testimony. Sheriff August retired 2 years after the incidents and lives in northern Alaska. He too rejected any involvement in this film. Now 22 years old, Ronnie Tyler remains distant from his mother. He continues to blame her for Ashley's disappearance. Lastly, Dr. Abby Tyler was eventually cleared of all accusations against her, including the disappearance of her daughter. She has since relocated to the east coast of the United States. Due to her bad condition, she remains under constant medical supervision. She continues to claim that non-human intelligence took Ashley. Ashley has never been found. The end credits roll with 911 calls reporting sightings of UFOs. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.